Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Virtual Student Experiences. Today's webinar will focus on entertainment law. If you guys are new to our program, Virtual Student Experiences is a pro bono initiative spearheaded for students by students. And the goal of the VSC is to give students around the world an opportunity to hear from professionals in their career industry of interest in a friendly and casual setting. If you're a student that knows what you want to do in the future, we as VSC want to encourage, allow, and connect you with professionals. And through VSC, students are given the chance to decide if their career choice fits their personality, skills, and overall interests. Through VSC, you'll be able to hear from a wide variety of guests in a wide variety of seniority levels. To find out more information and to sign up to be notified about other webinars, you can visit our website at www.virtualstudentexperiences.com. And before we get started, I just want to go over some housekeeping things. First of which is I'm going to be asking our guest professional a series of base knowledge questions so that you can get a good idea of who he is and what he does. And if at any time you think of a question then feel free to post it in the Q&A module, and we'll get to it in the later part of the webinar. We highly recommend that you ask questions during this webinar because it gives you the opportunity to get an answer right here, right now, instead of reading about it later on the internet. Without further ado, Mr. Lastine started his career as an attorney and has since progressed to become a professor and mentor. He went to the University of Northern Iowa, where he got his bachelor's degree in arts and economics. He then received his Juris Doctor at Pepperdine University School of Law and passed the most challenging bar exam, the California Bar Exam. He has since worked for many reputable companies such as Lionsgate, Marvel, and many more, and he now teaches at the Los Angeles Film School, where he inspires and educates young minds. His extensive knowledge, down-to-earth attitude, and likable personality make him a great asset to many. So thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Lastine.
Thank you for having me.
And I know we got a little bit into our webinar last time before we had to cut it off due to some technical difficulties, but we thank you for being open to rescheduling to talk with us and our students again. If it's okay, we're going to restart with our questions.
100%.
Awesome. So just to start, can you tell us about really what entertainment law is and how you got into it and maybe where your passion for law began?
Sure. So we all are very familiar with film and television, and part of my job is to be responsible for overseeing the day-to-day legal obligations of filming TV and feature films. So everything from putting together the actor contracts, the writer contracts, the producer contracts, the director contracts, additionally securing proper locations, reviewing the content for any sensitive material or third-party clearance, and just generally being available to the feature film or television show as they go about filming. And so that's probably my job in a nutshell. But where you'd be most familiar with my work is I was the outside show attorney for Man in the High Castle, Transparent, Mozart in the Jungle, and a handful of other Amazon shows over the last 5 years. Like you said, I got to work at Marvel Studios. I got to work on Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Guardians of the Galaxy. And I also got to work on Mad Men back in a previous life as well. So yeah, lots of varied career in entertainment. As far as law school and what got me into that, as a student growing up, I found that my strongest subjects in school were related to reading, writing, analytical skills, and what I would consider maybe sort of softer science. And as taking a step back, I would say that there's kind of 5 career paths in general that one student can take. There's hard sciences, which is your biology, chemistry, engineering, physics students. There's soft sciences, which is much more what I practice, which is economics, history, law, sociology, psychology, and then intermixing reading and writing. There's military careers, there's job trade careers, and then there's entrepreneurial careers. And so those are what I consider kind of the 5 buckets of careers that you can go into in the future. But for me, I noticed that all of my skill sets were in the softer fields. So reasoning, reading, writing, argumentative logic, and history and economics. And so is a merriment of all of those interests, I decided to go to law school, because you very much get a crash course in reading, writing, and an entire history of where the United States has been and where we're going in terms of the law.
Interesting. And then how did you get started as an entertainment lawyer? And were there really any special requirements that you have to have as an entertainment lawyer that needs to fill that litigation or employment lawyer, for example, may not have?
Yeah, 100%. So entertainment law is a very specialty field because there are only probably less than 500 to 1,000 attorneys in the entire world that practice entertainment law, because it's a large mix of intellectual property, contractual transactions, and relationships that go into every single deal. Part of that means is that I need to know a lot of people in the entertainment business in order to effectuate those deals, and to advocate for my clients in a way that is both strong and can get the job done. And so it's really all about networking. And so I'm from Iowa originally, and moved to Los Angeles in 2011 and didn't know a single person in Hollywood. But really, it was my uncle's wife's boss's sister's kid who got me my first job at American Idol. And working for American Idol, I got to work on a lot of the music licenses, to work with the top 31 contestants and presenting them their recording and publishing deals if they were to win American Idol. And so that kind of got me on my track. But I can't emphasize enough the importance of networking and holding yourself out there. Particularly as you're a student, a lot of people in my industry are willing to give time to students because A, we want to impart our wisdom. B, we're super egotistical and we love to talk about ourselves. So leverage your time as a student and put yourself out there to really go after people within particular industries that you think you may want to work in. The one thing that you should not do is ever feel embarrassed or too afraid to reach out to somebody, because the worst thing that can happen is they just don't respond.
And then I know you're talking a little bit about it, but is there any real specific advice for people that want to get into entertainment law, since it's such a tight-knit community of, you said, maybe 500 to 1,000 people in the world that practice it? Is there a specific way of how you get into that crowd?
Yeah, certainly going to a school that is located in Hollywood, or sorry, Los Angeles proper, is a great place to start, because a lot of the students that go to those schools, a lot of the professors that teach those schools, they're going to have family connections that work with inside the industry. Plus, two, during your summer periods in between school, you can actually intern for a lot of the entertainment companies. And that's what I did in law school. I ended up interning pretty much all throughout law school to work at all these various companies and to build both the skill sets and the connections in order to find a job post-graduation that works to work in this industry. So certainly going to a school that's either A, based in Los Angeles, or B, has an entertainment or strong intellectual property curriculum. And so, intellectual property is that intangible creation that is not starting to, but has so much potential value, whether it be a script, a song, a patent, an idea of any sorts, and finding a law school program that has good intellectual property curriculum will be the first step into working in entertainment law. And then from there, it's just networking and applying places. I think I applied to over 100 job applications my first year of law school alone. So you have to be able to handle rejection as well.
And then a little bit more into education. What really were skills or important aspects of your education that are essential for success as an entertainment lawyer or really any lawyer?
So I cannot emphasize enough the need to have good reading and writing skills. And I said this last time we spoke, but there's a wise saying that says that 20s are for learning, your 30s are for earning, and your 40s are for owning. And you guys are in such an amazing spot in your life right now that you can just be a sponge of information and material, and you should really just spend the next 10, 12 years of your life absorbing as much knowledge as humanly possible. And it doesn't, I mean, it matters what that knowledge is to a certain extent, but so long as you're within your field, and you're learning about maybe some of the more classical things, and we can get into it in just a second, but really you should be consuming, reading, as much content as possible, listening to audiobooks, listening to TED Talks, getting on YouTube, doing YouTube learning, all of that additional information is going to round you out as a person. So like when you get to my level, so much of what I do is an interplay of all of these skills. It's an interplay of negotiations. It's an interplay of good writing skills. It's an interplay of good sales skills. It's an interplay of psychology when I have to deal with actresses that are, temperamental. It's all of these disciplines finally coming together and making yourself a professional. So reading and writing are probably the two that I would say stand out the most. But I would also say that mindfulness is a skill set that I didn't have when I was 18, 19 years old that I wish I would have found 10 years earlier. So for those of you who don't know, mindfulness is the ability to control your own thoughts as they arise and in the moment, and be able to direct your thought patterns towards your own desire. It's the ability to recognize that there's two voices in your head, and you can direct and control those voices. Learning mindfulness was instrumental as far as learning how to negotiate, learning how to be a good attorney, learning how to listen, and sets me apart tremendously from my peers in this field.
Awesome. And then focusing back on the education portion, are there any classes that you would recommend someone take to really get a good basis in law?
So, there's a lot of um, bad press or bad PR as it relates to the liberal arts degree and all of those classes that you take that don't necessarily go towards your major, right? Like art and Western civilization. If you are a business student or a science student, you might not see the value of learning Western civilization. But I can tell you that things like Western Civ, art, music, literature, these things do matter, and they will have a pronounced effect on your career in the long run, because so many of your colleagues will have only focused on learning that one subject that you went to school for. And so in my economics degree, in my English degree, and even in my law degree, I tried to take as many subjects that were outside of that, so I could learn things like good reading and good writing skills. I would take as many advanced upper level courses in writing as you can as you can possible. Another one that a lot of students don't take, that is very important for today's society, is a class called Logic and Reasoning. It basically teaches you the proper protocols of how to argue and conduct a debate with someone formally. And as you have probably noticed by watching the news and our current political climate, a lot of the politicians out there are very much lacking in the trained, philosophies of debate. And so logic, reasoning, philosophy, money and investing is another one that I would seek out and try to learn at an early age. Um, And then anything to do with persuasion, sales, and influence. You're going to be selling yourself your entire life, no matter what field you're in. You're always going to be a salesperson for yourself as an individual.
Then I know you sent us a list of books which we're going to share with our students on our email list when we send it out later today, but what do you really feel is the importance of reading books?
It's funny because I was not, I was never super into reading until after law school, and I realized the importance of continuing your education outside of school. And there's a saying that goes, if you read 3 or 4 books on any subject, you will already know 99, or you will know more than 99% of the population out there about that given subject. Most people don't spend the time to read 3 or 4 books on a given subject. When you put that mass amount of volume of knowledge into your brain by osmosis, you're going to retain some of it, but you just keep on reinforcing it like paint on a wall if you're painting your house. And one of the things that I do is I will take one subject and I will read 12 books about that subject throughout the course of a year. So by the end of the year, I have done a full deep dive into personal investment in banking, or mindfulness, or relationships, or sales. And you really can gain years onto your life by absorbing the life of others. You can live Benjamin Franklin's 80 years of existence by reading his biography, and you absorb that knowledge, and you're a better person because of it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. We will be sure to send that out when we send out our email later on today. But can you speak to whether, or really what kind of mindset or attitude lawyers need to have?
I would call it the expand the pie mindset. And let me explain to you what that is. Generally, when people negotiate, they think of it like a pie, right? If I cut a pie into pieces and if I give you a bigger slice, then that means that I get a smaller slice for myself, and vice versa. That is an old school, old world mentality with regards to negotiation. A good attorney understands that by expanding the pie, i.e., making the pie bigger, you can make all parties better off in a negotiation and everyone walks away happy. And so it's about being able to think outside of the box, look at the situation and say, what can we do here to expand the pie? So if I have a writer producer negotiating with a studio and the studio doesn't want to give us the fees that we want, what can we do to expand the pie? Can we add credits to that? Can they get an additional executive producer credit? Could we add a award bonus in the event that the movie's super successful and goes on to win awards? Can we add money onto the deal that way? That way, at the end of the day, everybody wins, and the pie is overall expanded. And so I would say it's the difference between a growth mindset and a limited mindset. It is the belief that the world is abundant with resources and that everyone at the end of the day can be made prosperous and rich, versus the idea of winners and losers and it being a dog eat dog world.
Interesting. And then can you tell us a little bit maybe about your time with Viacom CBS and what your role was there?
Yeah, honestly, I was only there for a short amount of time because of COVID. Originally, when I was brought on to see a bunch of what we would call high budget subscription video on demand television, which is just a fancy way of saying Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon. And so when I was brought on at the beginning of January 2020, we at Viacom, CBS, and by extension Awesomeness TV were set to produce a bunch of young adult shows for Netflix. Obviously, because of COVID, we had to delay production, and most of those shows ended up being scrapped, which is why I was furloughed in March and then officially resigned as of July. But I am at a law firm now where I handle a wide variety of writers, directors, actors, producers, and people with life stories that are out trying to make a movie based on their life.
Interesting. And then can you speak to maybe what a typical day looked like for you before the coronavirus, and then how that's changed, maybe your work style, workflow, and how it's really changed your work?
Yeah, COVID really hasn't changed too much, other than it's really shortened my commute time because there's less people on the road, and there's less of a immediacy to my job because we're not actually filming. A lot of times my job gets very hectic when we're out on the road filming because I have to be available to the production at whatever time it is that they decide that they're going to be filming. So if we're filming in another country, I have to be up and ready to answer their questions, whatever time zone they're on, and in whatever position they are to be filming. So since no filming is happening right now, I'm on much more of a how do you say 10 to 5 schedule. I usually get in the office at about 10 a.m. and I usually leave around 5 p.m. But when things are more normal, it can be a much more hectic schedule. And instead of working 8-hour days, I usually have to work more to 10 to 12-hour days, depending.
That's interesting. That's quite a big change.
Yeah, it's really because nothing is filming right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. But can you speak to maybe any suggestions you have for aspiring entertainment lawyers?
Get out there and read and write as much as possible. Just start consuming books. If you don't have Audible yet or Blinkist, I certainly recommend both of those apps. I don't get paid to say that, but you know, start early in this goes for everybody. It doesn't have to be just attorneys, but start early in developing your personal brand. Start early in identifying what it is that you want out of life, and start early in going after it, and start building those connections and those networks that are going to allow you to open doors in the future. This is a really awesome time to reach out to people because everyone's working from home, everyone's stuck at home, everyone's checking their emails and LinkedIn. One of the things that I did when I first moved to Hollywood is I took a pen and paper and I wrote down all of the companies and all of the businesses that I thought that I would want to work for. And then I one by one went through that list and visited all of their job websites and started, poking around and seeing what internships they had, what job offerings they had, what entry level positions they had. And even still, actually, you know what? Funny I should say that. It's been probably, what's it been? 7, 8 years. Eight years later, I still have this list. It's been 8 years, and I've worked for a lot of these companies. I've worked for Marvel Studios. I've worked for Disney, Nickelodeon. I got my first Playboy client yesterday. Lionsgate, Summit Entertainment, and MTV for sure. So yeah, this document is like 8 or 9 years old now, but I still keep it with me. So plan ahead. Don't get upset if your plan doesn't work out. You have to be agile and movable, but start to plan early. And it sounds like anyone who's listening to this probably is.
Mm-hmm. And then at the high school level, which is kind of planning early, maybe what clubs do you suggest that aspiring entertainment lawyers join or perhaps create to really kickstart their going into that knowledge?
Certainly, if you guys have access to any debate or logic and reasoning clubs, that wasn't something that my high school offered, but I know that there are a lot of high schools that offer clubs and or classes in debate, speech, rhetoric, public speaking. Those are all great classes if you want to be an entertainment attorney. And I think that those are just great classes to take in general because, that's what life is right now, right? It's discerning information for yourself in an age of too much information, and being able to have good logic, reasoning, and argumentative skills, very vital for navigating today's world. um, other classes in high school. Starting a mindfulness meditation club actually would be really cool for high school students to do, and I think that your colleagues would appreciate you for it, especially turning them on to a subject that most people don't learn to study until their mid-20s. Taking any AP writing courses, any upper level AP writing courses, upper level English courses, and for me, getting a good understanding of United States history and the economy just will make you a more rounded, fuller person. Um, it's just something that everyone who is an American citizen needs to know. You need to know about the U.S. Constitution. You need to know about the powers of our government. You need to know how voting works. You need to know how a bill becomes a law. So study those things as well, because most people don't.
Hmm. Interesting. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And then just last question from us. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe what the typical path is in terms of education, internships, jobs looks like for a beginning lawyer?
Yeah, so obviously after you graduate undergraduate, you have to apply to law. You have to take the LSAT and apply to law school. Generally speaking, a lot of people that apply to law school are political science majors. So it's good for you to major in anything else other than political science, because there's so many applicants that are already political science majors that if you study something like zoology or chemistry or biology and then you decide to go to law school, you're going to set yourself apart from everyone else in the crowd. Once you get into law school, there is a core set curriculum that every lawyers take: torts, property, criminal law, civil procedure, and legal writing. But then after your first year into your second and third year, you can just start to diversify your classes and take specialty areas of law to try to discern what it is that you might want to do for a career path. The great thing about being an attorney is that there are attorneys in every single industry. So that if you become an attorney, it's really more about finding the industry and the geographical location that you want to work and live, and just applying your law degree to that specific place.
Awesome. Thank you for answering our questions here at VSC. Now it's time for the students to ask questions. So if you guys have questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A module and we'll start to go through them now. But so far I see one. So really, how much does going to a top 10 school play into one's success as a lawyer?
So I wouldn't say that it really plays into your success as a lawyer, but for the fact that you have to pay back student loans, and or if you want to get into a certain sphere of legal practice. And I would call that the big time corporate lawyers. So if you want to be a big time corporate lawyer making millions of dollars off cases, then it's probably very important for you to go to one of the top 10 law schools. If you want to graduate law school debt free, usually if you are a person that can get into one of the top 10 law schools, you can get a full ride from a top 25 school, and graduating debt free can feel very good. Things aside, as long as you're graduating from a top 100 law school, and I would certainly try to aim for the top 50, but as long as you graduate within the top 100 law schools, you are going to have a lucrative, successful, middle class lifestyle. You're not going to be making millions of dollars, but you're going to be making comfortable six figures, and you're probably going to work in an area that doesn't cost too much to live, and you're not going to want to walk for a lot of things. What you don't want to do is go to a non-ABA accredited law school and pay the full sticker price, because people who do that end up being very unhappy with their law degrees. And I would say too, entertainment law is a very difficult field to make it in. And unless you have a extreme passion for television, film, literature, and the arts, there's lots of other career paths for attorneys that are much more lucrative. and can make you a lot more money. I knew as a kid growing up watching Star Wars and Die Hard and Lord of the Rings that what I wanted to do was be an attorney for actors, writers, directors, and producers. So that's what I went out and did. But you can use a law degree in almost any industry.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to once again reschedule time to talk with us here at VSC and the students. We appreciate the knowledge you were able to give us in terms of your experiences, your knowledge, and even your book list, which we'll be sure to send out to our students later on. But yeah, to our students, thank you so much for joining us today. If you guys have any other questions, or if you'd like to be notified about a future VSC webinar, feel free to sign up on our website at www.virtualstudentexperiences.com. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Good
Nice
luck.
day.